Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes mini review. I was recently contacted by a representative from Village Delights, and this is a magazine that is geared towards Department 56 collectors, but was presented to me with the idea that there are articles within it that have overlap for the miniature wargaming community. So what I want to do today is show you the inside of this magazine, give you some thoughts about some of the articles within there, how they could relate to the miniature market, and then we'll wrap it up and I'll give you some final thoughts. So a representative of Village Delights sent me an assortment of issues with the idea of trying to highlight how some of these could apply to a wargaming market. Now, this kind of magazine, I think, offers a unique opportunity to sort of hit both members of the household, assuming you have a male-female relationship in the household. And perhaps the missus of the house, or perhaps the husband, not interested in wargaming, but is interested in crafting. So this provides kind of a nice combination of the two, in that some of the articles are really more favored towards crafting, but some definitely have application towards gaming if you're willing to look at them with the right eye. So they were happy enough to mark a few of the pertinent articles in these samples to help me find them. And we're going to basically just go through a couple of them very quickly, just to give you a sense of what this magazine really has to offer. So in this example, they're showing how somebody took the time to create a way of putting a dome in the back of a display and then lighting it. Right away, I saw this as an opportunity for a display board for miniatures. It'd be really nice to have some sort of a focal point for a large miniature sitting at the back of a display, you know, perhaps an Ragnarok or an Abomination or, you know, an Empire, what are their new wagons? Anyway, you get the idea. A large flyer for 40K, something like that. Taking a look at another article, there's an article here on how to create icy features, how they show how carving was done, what kinds of effects were used for water, and sort of a brief step-by-step. I would describe these articles as giving you an overall sense of how to do it, and at least outlining, you know, sort of the key steps that are involved. But one of the nice things is they do have very good pictures throughout the article showing you some of those steps. Let's take a look at another one here. Let's see here. So basically, each of the issues have one or two basically how-to features where they outline a certain kind of project or a certain process in more detail, and then the bulk of the remainder of the issue is going to be on you know, perhaps the kinds of pieces that people are collecting, or the kinds of stories, you know, that go on behind, you know, each of the collectors, and what kinds of collections they're amassing. But the article here in this case is, you know, how to clean your village, basically how to keep it dust-free. And I can't think of anything more relevant to people who are collecting terrain, building their own, or perhaps storing their miniatures, in terms of when they do get dusty, what are the ways that you're going to be able to pack them safely, to remove dust from them, what kinds of vacuum cleaners would be a good option. It just sort of gives you another perspective, and again, it's about shifting your view from looking at these as collectible models. These are Department 56 models in large part, but when you look at that, you have to think, what would this do for my terrain? And it's really not a very big stretch. Here, this person is animating the weather vane at the top of a small building and goes through the step-by-steps of how he removed the initial piece, how he drilled it out, how he inserted the motor, how he you know, shaped some of the pieces to make sure it all fit. And actually, I thought that was a very interesting article myself. So as I was looking through these, I definitely saw things that would be relevant to you know, the terrain market, if you will. Here you have somebody doing a very elaborate display with a railroad car, lighting that. Of course, you can see a large, you know, puke waterfall, if you will, from this skull embedded in the mountain. So, and of course, you know, looking at this piece here and how he has built height into the display of these models to really try to showcase them. A lot of vertical elements catch the eye and give it a sense of place. You know, it's not a big stretch to think about how that could be created into, use that as an inspiration for creating a large terrain piece, perhaps for an icy world, but of course it could be painted in a variety of ways. So, having gone through, you know, these 4 or 5 magazines that were sent me, I feel like it does offer a really interesting way to view terrain, and with an eye that is outside of the conventional way that terrain is often showcased, including myself, you know, and so it gives you a chance to think about it in a fresh way. Here's an area of where they're using forced perspective to create a scene of a large town, and the roads taper as it goes back to give you the impression that this is a much deeper area. So is that something that you would incorporate into your table? Maybe, maybe not. Are you shooting a diorama? Showcase your miniatures. Are you creating a tabletop? Here they show exactly how they built the tabletop in terms of its framing in order to capture all of the elements that they wanted to include. So I would never have thought that this magazine would really have a lot of relevance to the wargaming market, but as so often is the case, just as train hobbyists are basically our cousins, if you will, you know, so are the people who are doing these kinds of displays. And then, of course, they have, you know, a catalog of all the kinds of pieces that they offer. So it does feel to me like a bit of a hybrid piece, whereby if one member of the household is into crafting, collectibles, that sort of idea, but doesn't want to build something to display, you know, a large flyer for 40K, but there is a member of the house who would like to do that. This kind of a magazine brings you two together to the table to share ideas and to think about how they can be adapted to each of your own personal interests. So that gives you an overlook of Village Delights. An interesting magazine for sure, and I think it does have some things to offer that might surprise you. So, having taken a look at these articles, at least a sampling of them, I hope that gave you a sense of what the magazine could potentially offer you. And as a final thought, I want to say that what I think this offers more than any other kind of wargaming tutorial display article is that because if you're a wargamer, you're not interested in the Department 56 miniatures. So when you're looking at it, you're not struck by the eye candy. Instead, what you should be looking for when you look at one of these articles is the fundamentals that went into the display composition. How did they do movement? How did they do lighting? How was the table built? Why are the buildings looking better when they're up here? How do they change the lighting to alter the scene or the mood? It encourages you to think outside of the box, and I think that's where the real value comes from Village Delights. Now, Village Delights was gracious enough to provide me with a variety of copies for free, and I have several dozen of them. And so what I'd like to do is to offer them up as part of a giveaway, and I will be doing a video for the giveaway very soon, and I'll only be asking people who are interested in it to pay for the shipping. It will travel media mail, and will probably cost about $2 or so. And I just want to thank Village Delights again for providing this for me. They did not pay me. This is not a paid sponsorship, but I do appreciate being contacted by them and having the opportunity to look at something definitely outside of the box. So stay tuned to the channel. You know I'll be back with more mini reviews and other content. And until then, I just want to say thank you, and I'll join you again in another TerranScapes video.